have 5 minutes for the questions and comments when the House resumes debate on this motion.
Déclaration de députés. Statements by members. The honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is an enormous honour to rise today in my place to pay tribute to a veteran, a war hero, and a truly lovely human being. Major retired Charles Goodman, C.D., is a constituent of mine, and he has an extraordinary and distinguished war record. He was part of the Normandy invasion on D-Day, and he and his wife, Nancy, just recently traveled to the Netherlands to be part of the 70th anniversary commemoration of the Canadian role in liberating the Netherlands. Charles Goodman is known as Chick, and Chick Goodman was one of the selected speakers for the commemoration of Canada's role, particularly his role in the liberation of the Westerbork concentration camp in the Netherlands. He played such an incredible role in battle after battle and country after country that the French government last year chose to bestow upon him their Legion of Honor and highest award. It's an honor to be his MP and a greater honor to be his friend.
For Selkirk Interlake.
Mr. Speaker, today 6 of 7 members of the Baha'i Faith Leadership Group will be entering their 8th year of incarceration in the Islamic Republic of Iran. Mrs. Kamalbadi, Mr. Kanjani, Mr. Naemi, Mr. Razai, Mr. Takavoli, and Mr. Tezfam joined Mrs. Mavesh Sabet in prison in early May 2008. Their only crime in Iran is their membership in the Baha'i Faith and their efforts to serve the spiritual and social needs of their fellow believers. The 7-member group known as Iran, which means friends, was formed to minister to the needs of their community at the national level. Iran's 20-year prison terms represent the longest imposed on any current prisoner of conscience in Iran, and for some, and given their advanced age, amounts to a life sentence. These 7 Baha'i leaders are yet another example of the travesty of justice in Iran, and their imprisonment is a glaring abuse of human rights. I call on President Rouhani and the Iranian regime to respect human rights and freedom of religion, exercise clemency, suspend their sentences, and immediately release the 7 Baha'i leaders.
The honourable member for Beauport-Limoilou. Mr. Speaker, wholesale grocery Grossist Le Frigo will be opening in Limoilou in mid-June. This is great news. Meat, fruit and vegetables at a fraction of the usual price will now be available for local residents. This is in addition to great initiatives like the Rutabaga Collective Public Market and the Petit Marché Solidaire de Limoilou, which have increased the availability of fresh, affordable food products. But these initiatives, great though they are, still won't fix everything for the hundreds of families in Beauport-Limoilou who depend on food banks. Many of these families are working families whose income simply isn't enough to live with dignity. And that's why I'm running for the NDP for a 4th time, and I'll work to put in place measures that will truly help families in Beauport-Limoilou, like a minimum wage at $15 an hour. The people of Beauport-Limoilou work very hard to live with dignity, and they deserve policies that meet their needs.
The honourable member for St. Paul's.
Mr. Speaker, the insurance industry has a very proud history in Canada. Over the past century, insurance companies have contributed to our economy while helping Canadians secure their financial futures. Today, the Canadian Fraternal Alliance is in Ottawa for their first Advocacy Day, raising awareness and highlighting the achievements of fraternal benefit societies. They are unique organizations within the sector that provide insurance and financial products to their members and also demonstrate a strong commitment to giving back to their communities through volunteerism and support of charitable activities. For example, Faith Life Financial in Waterloo has contributed almost $44 million in donations and volunteer hours since their inception. And all fraternals are making a similar impact in their local communities. Mr. Speaker, thank you to all fraternal benefit societies for making a difference in their communities.
Yeah.
The honourable member for St. Paul's.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The increased aircraft noise in St. Paul's from the 2012 flight path changes at Toronto Pearson International Airport have had an overwhelming impact on my constituents. Local residents were not appropriately consulted about these changes, and there seems to be a total lack of public accountability or government oversight regarding these flight path decisions. I've been working closely with the impressive Toronto Aviation Noise Group on this issue to find measures to mitigate the aircraft noise in St. Paul's and to find a long-term solution. Since 2012, I've met repeatedly with NAV Canada, Transport Canada, GTA officials to discuss the issue and convey concerns from local residents. I've also raised the issue with the Minister of Transport in person and in writing on numerous occasions. The finger-pointing among government and responsible organization has been truly disappointing. Residents of St. Paul's have shared the impacts of the enjoyment of their homes as well as the significant health concerns. I urge the Minister of Transport to bring all the players to the table to find a long-term solution to this untenable situation.
The honourable member for Yorkton Melville.
Mr. Speaker, after nearly 22 years as a Member of Parliament for Yorkton Melville, my work in this place is quickly coming to a close. It has been an honour and a privilege to represent the constituents of Yorkton Melville. Who would have thought that a simple farm boy educated in a one-room country school would end up on Parliament Hill? As a newbie to Ottawa and the ways of Parliament back in '93, I grew to depend on good advice, be it from my staff, my colleagues, or the countless professional employees who work for the House of Commons. There are so many employees within the parliamentary precinct who make our work here on the Hill a whole lot easier. Employees from the Library of Parliament to the Clerk's Office, from printing and mailing services to IT, from the parliamentary restaurant to security services, and I could go on. Staff like Elizabeth Nye, Dennis Young, Sandy Campeau. The list is endless. I am filled with gratitude to all who have assisted me over the years. Through you, Mr. Speaker, I want to recognize all the employees who work on the Hill for their dedication and outstanding service. I am truly grateful to them all.
The Honourable Member for Quebec. Mr. Speaker, it's with great honour that I rise today in the House to remind everyone that May 17th will be International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia. The Montreal Declaration on LGBT Human Rights calls for all countries to recognize this day. We need to continue to say loud and clear that Canada is an open society, open to all. And it's important to recognize the crucial role that community organizations play. Organizations that work every day to promote inclusion of the LGBT community and by fighting for their rights and their needs. I'd also like to highlight the work done by Gris Québec, the Conseil québécois LGBT, and the Alliance Arc-en-Ciel de Québec, as well as Miel Québec. I would also like to highlight the important role played by allies, people who every day help to end prejudice. I would like to ask all Canadians to participate in raising awareness to continue to fight homophobia and transphobia, and do like me, wear your badge. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, on February 25th, Bill C-586, the Reform Act, was adopted in this House by a vote of 260 to 17. But, Mr. Speaker, we are rapidly approaching the dissolution of this Parliament in the general election. There remains only 5 sitting weeks before summer adjournment. If the bill is not passed into law before the end of June, it will die. Mr. Speaker, there's an important constitutional principle at stake here. The Constitution and the Parliament of Canada Act provide for a bicameral parliament where each chamber is independent of each other in respect of its own affairs and its own governance. The Reform Act concerns only the House of Commons and how the House of Commons and its caucuses are to be governed and how members are to be elected to the House of Commons. On February 25th, the House of Commons overwhelmingly pronounced on how it wants to be governed. Constitutional principles need to be respected and upheld, and the Reform Act needs to pass into law.
The honourable member for Northumberland, Kinty West.
Mr. Speaker, as my time in this place draws to a close, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank God for all the gifts He has bestowed upon me. To the constituents of Northumberland, Quinte West, for putting their faith in me as their federal representative in the 39th, 40th, and 41st Parliament. Of course, I would not be here without the tireless efforts of our EDA and the volunteers in all those elections. And my thanks to the fine folks who, under your command, make this a place to work, great place to work. To my staff, a heartfelt thank you. You are the reason we have such a good reputation in the riding. And to my wife, Judith Irene Bangs, she is the reason I said yes to public life. We could not have been successful without the support of my sons James, Matthew, their wives Jennifer and Shonda, and the greatest grandchildren a grandpa could ever have, Macy, Ben, Luke, and Fisher. The four of you make Grandpa and Yada very proud, and we love you so very much.
The honourable member for Dartmouth Cole Harbour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In Dartmouth Cole Harbour and in communities across Canada, households that have always received home mail delivery are being forced into using community mailboxes against their will. In my riding, the locations have been selected, many in spite of serious objections from residents, and the installation work begins soon. People I talk to are really upset because they know how difficult it will be for thousands of seniors, people with mobility challenges, and people living in poverty. They also know that this is completely unnecessary. Mr. Speaker, not only are 25,000 homes in my riding losing service, so are almost 200 small businesses, 30 schools, dozens of churches, even our community centers and libraries. This is unacceptable. I'm proud today to tell my constituents that an NDP government would reverse this terrible decision and restore home mail delivery to those from whom it's been taken.
The honourable member for Mississauga East Cooksville.
Mr. Speaker, our Conservative government is focused on the priorities of Canadian families. That is why we introduced the family tax cut and the universal child care benefit that will put more money in the pockets of every Canadian family. This is in stark contrast to the NDP and Liberal plan to raise taxes for all Canadians. The Liberal leader even said benefiting every single family isn't what is fair. Maybe the Liberal leader believes it's fair to pick one family over another family and somehow not being fair to all families who help the budget balance itself. We believe it is fair to benefit every single family and provide opportunities for all Canadians. We'll make sure that families receive those benefits, Mr. Speaker. We'll make no apologies for helping all Canadian families, and we understand that benefiting every single family is indeed fair.
The honourable member for Argenteuil-Papineau-Mirabel. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've been so lucky to have spent the last 4 years with the people of Argenteuil-Papineau-Mirabel. It's a diverse rural riding where agriculture, heritage, and industry meet, and where the people are very friendly and welcoming. Along with my constituents, I've criticized the demolition of the Mirabel Airport, I've defended those whose land was expropriated, called for the restoration of the Granville Canal, and worked for continued funding for the Festival de Saint-Placide and the Montebello Rockfest. And we've worked closely with local First Nations. My legislative proposals, a housing strategy for women, standards for septic tanks, and protection of navigable waters, aim to improve my riding and my country, and through my local riding offices and all kinds of events, I've made a priority of meeting all of my constituents. But after 4 years, I'm convinced that what we need to do is repair the damage caused by the Conservatives. It's time to finish the job. It's time to form an NDP government.
Bruce Ray Owen Sam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we promised, our government has been cutting taxes for Canadians. For example, the family tax cut and enhanced universal child care benefit will benefit 100% of families with kids. The vast majority of benefits going to low and middle income families. No one knows their children better than parents do. Our plan is the only child care plan that gives parents the final say on how to care for their children by giving all families a benefit and leaving it up to parents to decide how to spend this money. Mr. Speaker, the Liberal leader plans to take away the family tax cut and replace it with the family tax hike. The Liberal leader wants to take it all away. He wants to get rid of the tax-free savings accounts, income splitting, and the universal child care benefit. Mr. Speaker, he doesn't care about helping families. He even said that benefiting every single family isn't what is fair. Can you believe that?
The honourable member for Vancouver Quadra.
Mr. Speaker, the Renewable Cities program aims to accelerate the adoption of 100% renewable energy within cities globally and recognizes the world needs an integrated approach to energy efficiency and urban design. This 5-year program has been co-designed with leaders in local government, the private sector, key innovators, thought leaders, and the utility sector. With reductions in consumption and energy system transformation, renewable cities can become a reality. As a first step, a global learning forum is being held at the Four Seasons Hotel in Vancouver today through Saturday. I'm so proud of Vancouver's goal and plan to become the greenest city in the world by 2020, earning them the role of hosting this forum. A diverse range of visionary leaders have gathered, including a German delegation from World Future Council, by whom I had the pleasure of being briefed this week in Ottawa. The delegates will share ideas, best practices, and encouragement, joining an important global movement for change. I wish them every success.
The honourable member for Peace River.
Speaker, the Liberals have plans for tax hikes and massive deficits, and Mr. Speaker, their numbers just don't add up. The Liberal leader even said, and I'm quoting, benefiting every single family isn't what is fair. Mr. Speaker, that's outrageous. He went further, though, Mr. Speaker. He pledged to cancel the universal child care benefit. He wants to replace our family tax cut with a family tax hike. And further still, the Liberal leader admits that there's still billions of dollars in terms of a hole within his plan. He also admits that he will have to raise taxes on people earning less than $60,000 a year by canceling their expanded tax-free savings accounts. Canadians are smart enough not to be fooled and will stick with our plan that actually puts money back into their pockets.
Member for Scarborough Southwest.
Canadians are sick and tired of turning on their TV to watch the game just to see their hard-earned tax dollars being flushed down the drain on government ads that serve the interests of the Conservative Party, not Canadians. Now, former Chief Electoral Officer John-Pierre Kingsley has now spoken out declaring these partisan ads must stop. These ads are creating an unfair advantage. In other words, this is cheating, plain and simple. Meanwhile, Liberals like to complain about the over $750 million spent on ads by the Conservatives, but then they stay silent on the over $1 billion they spent on similar ads. And then in Ontario, Mr. Speaker, after promising to clean this up, the Win Liberals are now gutting their own law. Enough of the empty promises, enough of the hypocrisy and the entitlement, Mr. Speaker. More and more Canadians see they do have a choice. And this October, Canadians can vote to finally end this unethical behaviour, vote for the change they want, and actually get it.
Honourable member for Prince Albert.
Mr. Speaker, the leader of the Liberal Party says that benefiting every single Canadian isn't what is fair. That's why, of course, he wants to take away from every single family the universal child care benefit, why he wants to take away income splitting, which is benefiting families and seniors, and why he wants to take away tax-free savings accounts. And even after he does all that, it still doesn't add up. Mr. Speaker, his numbers still don't add up. And Mr. Speaker, our Conservative government stands for all Canadian families by keeping taxes low and making sure that they can spend their hard-earned money on their own priorities.
Oral questions. Questions orales. The honourable member for Halifax.
Mr. Speaker, the numbers don't lie. Conservative economic policy is getting us nowhere. Over 1,500 jobs have just been lost at Bombardier, 1,000 in Montreal, and around 500 in Toronto. The Conservatives are completely ignoring the manufacturing industry. Are the Conservatives going to turn things around? What's their plan to kickstart manufacturing? The Honourable Minister of Employment. Mr. Speaker, obviously our hearts go out to those who lose their jobs. At the same time, our plan to reduce taxes and train workers and to increase international trade has succeeded in creating 1.2 million new jobs. 80% of those are full-time, and 2/3 are in well-paying industries. And we will continue with our economic action plan to create jobs for Canadians.
who are facing the bad news today as they learn of 1,500 jobs lost at Bombardier. This comes on the heels of news that Canada lost 20,000 jobs last month. This isn't about statistics. It's about thousands of lives thrown into chaos and thousands of families uncertain about how they'll pay their rent or pay for their grocery bill. Why are the Conservatives ignoring so many people in need of help while giving billions to the wealthy?
Here, here.
The Honourable Minister of Employment. Well, we have our hearts go out to anyone who has lost their job. Our plan for tax cuts, training, and trade has created 1.2 million net new jobs since the recession. 80% are full-time, 80% in the private sector, and almost two-thirds in high-wage sectors. The NDP and Liberals have one plan for jobs. That is to raise taxes on those who create them and those who work at them. Mr. Speaker, taxes will only kill jobs and send shockwaves throughout our economy. That's why we're keeping taxes low.
The Honourable Member for Halifax.
Facts straight before misleading Canadians, because here are the facts. Last month, Halifax lost 2,600 jobs, 6,600 in Kitchener-Waterloo, 4,400 jobs in Edmonton, 1,600 in Kelowna, and in Montreal, 27,000 jobs lost in the last 6 months. With thousands more people losing their jobs, why are Conservatives so hell-bent on giving billions away to the wealthy few?
The NDP and Liberals have only one plan on jobs, and that is to raise taxes on those who create them, Mr. Speaker. We have the opposite approach. Through tax cuts, training, and trade, our economy has generated 1.2 million net new jobs since the recession. Mr. Speaker, 80% are full-time, 80% are in the private sector, two-thirds are in high-wage industries. We will continue to keep taxes down to create more jobs for Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Rosemont, La Petite Patrie. Mr. Speaker, crocodile tears don't help those who've lost their job. We want action from the federal government. The fact is that the manufacturing industry in Quebec has lost 102,500 manufacturing jobs. And now with Bombardier, it's 1,000 more families in Montreal, among them 850 in Dorval, who will be without a job trying to make ends meet. And instead of helping them, the Conservatives are serving up a rehashed budget of tax handouts to the richy rich. When is the government going to do something to avoid losing even more good jobs? The Honourable Minister of Employment. Mr. Speaker, the NDP and Liberal parties have only one plan, that's to raise income taxes for Canadians and raise taxes on job creators. Our plan is the opposite. We are cutting taxes for those who create jobs, cutting taxes for consumers and for families. This will enable people to save for the future, and it will allow small and medium-sized businesses to hire people. That is why we have created 1.2 million net new jobs since the recession. 80% of those are full-time, and two-thirds are high-wage. The Honourable Member for Rosemont, La Petite Patrie. Mr. Speaker, the Conservative recipe doesn't work. We're losing more and more jobs all across Quebec and Canada. Here again are the facts. In Quebec, approximately 102,500 manufacturing jobs have been lost on their watch. In Montreal, 27,000 jobs have been lost in the last 6 months. Another 1,500 at Bombardier. They've been in office for 10 years and have completely lost touch with the real world. Will the government stop helping their ultra-rich cronies and finally start supporting our families in need? Honourable Minister of Employment. Mr. Speaker, we've already done that. That is why we've created 1.2 million net new jobs, of which 80% are full-time, 80% are private sector, and two-thirds are high-wage jobs. The NDP would put in place a carbon tax which would destroy factories and other employers in Quebec and all across Canada. Mr. Speaker, that is why Canadians will never take the risk of electing the New Democrats. The honourable member for Westmount Ville-Marie. Mr. Speaker, the bad news for manufacturing keeps piling up. Today we learned that Bombardier has announced they'll be firing 1,750 employees, including 1,000 in Montreal. Last month, 20,000 jobs were lost in Canada. The government's laissez-faire approach is completely irresponsible. It's time something was done. Why is this government doing nothing to create jobs here in Canada? The Honourable Minister of Employment. Mr. Speaker, we have taken action to create jobs with, for example, lower taxes for small and medium-sized businesses. The rate has been cut from 11 to 9%. But the Liberal leader says he would overturn those tax cuts for entrepreneurs and small business. He wants to increase taxes on our entrepreneurs and small businesses. Mr. Speaker, that's the worst thing you could do. That would kill jobs, and it would jeopardize our economy.
More nonsense answers from that minister. Mr. Speaker, Conservatives say cheer up, and things could be worse, though. So Canadians cheered up, and yes, they got much, much worse. They're worse for 1,500 workers just laid off at Bombardier today, as 1,000 in Montreal and another 500 in Toronto. And that's on top of the hundreds of thousands you've heard about of good jobs that have been lost because of government inaction. So the minister continues to sell his phony 1.2 million jobs line, but unemployed families know better. Will the minister finally admit that their Conservative fiscal policies have failed?
Disaster.
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, our plan for trade, training, and tax cuts has created 1.2 million net new jobs since the recession, 80% full-time, 80% in the private sector, 2/3 in high-wage sectors. Now, the worst thing we could do at this juncture is to follow the Liberal leader's plan to raise taxes on small businesses. He announced the day of the budget, while we were cutting taxes on small business job creators, that if he got the chance, he would raise them. That would kill jobs and send shockwaves through our economy. That's why Canadians will never give them the chance.
The Honourable Member for York West.
That is not working, Mr. Speaker. Let's look at some of the closed or closing plants in and around Toronto. Ciba Vision in Mississauga, 300 jobs. Auto Modular in Oakville, 525 jobs. Premium Brands in Toronto, 200 jobs. The Wrigley plant in Toronto, 400 jobs. 1,000 jobs at GM in Oshawa, and now 500 jobs in Downsview. The Conservatives' track record is clear. They've abandoned the manufacturing sector and the Canadians it employs.
That's right.
Why? That's the question, is why?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, under our low tax plan, we've created 1.2 million net new jobs since the recession. That is 80% full-time and 2/3 in the private sector. The last thing we want now is to follow the Liberal plan to raise taxes on small business. That would compound the disastrous provincial Liberal policies of tax and borrow. The payroll taxes, the carbon taxes, and the other tax increases of the Ontario Liberal government have been disastrous. The last thing we'd want is to see them compounded by a high-tax Liberal leader in Ottawa.
Honourable Member for Parkdale High Park.
Mr. Speaker, 5 years after Nortel went bankrupt and 20,000 pensioners had their incomes dramatically slashed, a bankruptcy court has ruled they're entitled to an equitable share of Nortel's assets.
Hear, hear.
But the battle's still not over for these pensioners, as appeals may drag on, and their lawyer is warning they may not receive the full amount. Why have the Conservatives failed to protect workers and left these pensioners to the mercy of the courts?
Excellent. The Honourable Minister of State.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Of course, our thoughts always are with the workers and their families, but let me say that our government has been very encouraged by this week's decision. In fact, the member opposite may not know, but the lawyer for the Nortel pensioners said that he was, quote, very pleased with the decision because it upheld the interests of pensioners.
The honourable member for Parkdale High Park.
Well, if they take a haircut on their pension, my guess is they'll be less pleased about it, Mr. Speaker. This government's economic strategy is failing Ontario. Under this Conservative government, more than 275,000 manufacturing jobs in Ontario have disappeared. And today we learn another 480 jobs are lost at Bombardier's Downsview plant in Toronto. And of course, in spite of the crocodile tears opposite, our hearts really are with the workers who are facing an uncertain future in that plant. Question is simple. Why do they refuse to support manufacturing jobs in Ontario?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, if that were true, why would the NDP, along with the Liberals, propose devastating new taxes on the manufacturing sector in Ontario? That would drive up costs for employers and drive Canadians out of work. Our approach is tax cuts, training, and trade, and that's why across Canada we've had a net increase of employment of 1.2 million jobs. That's 80% private sector, 80% full-time, 2/3 in high-wage sectors. We will continue to keep taxes low and employment high.
The honourable member for Beauharnois-Salaberry. Mr. Speaker, the minister should get his head out of the sand. Laid-off aerospace workers have had enough of the Conservatives' empty rhetoric. 1,000 aerospace workers in Montreal woke up to sad news this morning. First Bell helicopter 2 weeks ago. Now Bombardier has just announced another round of layoffs. We're talking about 150 workers in Saint-Laurent and 850 workers at the Dorval plant who will be joining the ranks of the unemployed. What is the Conservatives' plan to protect jobs here in Montreal? The Honourable Minister of Employment. Mr. Speaker, our economic action plan is working. We've created 1.2 million net new jobs since the recession. 80% are full-time, 2/3 in high-wage sectors. We did this by increasing trade, by training our workers, and finally by cutting taxes for those who create jobs and those who are working. The only plan the NDP has is to increase taxes and tax carbon. That would kill jobs in manufacturing. The honourable member for Saint-Lambert. Mr. Speaker, 102,000 manufacturing jobs lost in Quebec since 2006. 102,000. That's the Conservatives' record. 850 workers at Bombardier's Dorval Jet Finishing Centre will be looking for work. 150 engineers who work in the borough of Saint-Laurent are going to be laid off. They support hundreds of restaurants, shops, and businesses in the Montreal area. Do the Conservatives have a plan for these workers, or just more goodies for the wealthy? The Honourable Minister of Employment. Mr. Speaker, we have a plan that is Economic Action Plan. We are cutting taxes, boosting trade, and training our workers. That has created 1.2 million net new jobs. 80% of those are full-time, 2/3 in high-wage sectors. But the NDP's only plan is to put a tax on carbon, a tax which would kill jobs in Quebec and all across Canada. Mr. Speaker, we oppose that. We're against that because we want to protect jobs. The honourable member for Louis Hébert. We've had enough of your inaction plans. Tomorrow, 200 workers at Davie Shipyard in Lévis will be sent home. Over the next few weeks, others could suffer the same fate, all because the Conservative government refuses to make up its mind about the temporary renewal of its fleet of supply ships. The government of Quebec is asking the federal minister to get a move on. 200 families are at risk of losing their well-paid jobs. Mr. Speaker, when will the minister finally make up his mind? When will the minister finally support the people of Lévis? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker, the Davie Shipyard has been successful in pursuing federal shipbuilding opportunities, including important shipyard work to retrofit the Louis St. Laurent and the de Grozier icebreakers. Recently, Davie also obtained important federal government contracts to prolong the life of the Canadian Coast Guard ship, the Earl Grey. Davie will have the opportunity to bid on further publicly tendered work, including smaller ship construction, ship repair, retrofit, and maintenance work, Mr. Speaker. Moving forward, Davie is welcome to bid on these upcoming shipbuilding projects, Mr. Speaker.
Member for London Fanshawe.
Mr. Speaker, under the Conservatives, job losses just keep piling up and workers are suffering from the lack of a government plan to protect Canadian jobs. Last month, Ontario lost over 14,000 jobs, and many are worried there's more to come. GM workers in Oshawa are concerned that the 1,000 jobs cut may signal trouble for the future of the entire plant. Why did the Conservatives sell off billions in GM shares without doing anything to secure the thousands of good Canadian jobs that may very well be at risk?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, it's interesting that every single company that the NDP has listed in its questions today is a company that the NDP admits they will raise taxes on. They say they will raise business taxes on companies like Bombardier and GM to punish those businesses for hiring people in Canada. Mr. Speaker, our approach is exactly the opposite. We have a low-tax plan that focuses on training, trade, and tax cuts and has created 1.2 million net new jobs since the recession. 80% of those jobs are full-time, two-thirds are in high-wage sectors.
Honourable Member for Skeena, Bulkley Valley.
Mr. Speaker, the good people of British Columbia have been feeling the hit from failed Conservative policies for years. Far too many are working harder and harder than ever, but falling further behind. Nearly 29,000 jobs were lost in British Columbia just last month alone. But while Conservatives have billions and billions for the wealthy and well-connected, they have no plan whatsoever to kickstart the BC economy. Western Canadians are sick and tired of being taken for granted from these Conservative MPs, while the job losses mount and families pay the price. Is there even one Conservative MP from British Columbia that's willing to stand up and fight for our province?
Mr. Speaker, by delivering trade, training, and tax cuts, our British Columbia MPs stand up and fight for their constituents every single day of the year. That member would betray British Columbia's interests by imposing higher taxes on businesses there, forcing them to lay off people and sending shockwaves throughout their economy. The anti-trade agenda of the NDP would put a big wall around the Pacific coast and prevent goods from going in and out of the economy, Mr. Speaker. That is the last thing British Columbia needs. They need a low-tax plan, and that's what they're getting.
The Honourable Member for Thunder Bay, Rainy River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 5 years ago, the Conservatives announced their so-called Fairness at the Pump Act. They promised that 65,000 gas pumps would be inspected annually. But Industry Canada hasn't yet handed out a single penalty, despite data that shows that 6% of pumps fail to dispense the right amount of fuel. Can the minister explain why no penalties have been levied, or was this legislation just more empty Conservative promises on consumer protection?
The Honourable Minister of State.
Well, Mr. Speaker, Canadian families expect that when they purchase gasoline, they get what they pay for. That's why our government took action and passed the Fairness at the Pumps Act and ensures that gasoline pumps are routinely inspected for accuracy. And it's clear, Mr. Speaker, it's clear that our legislation is working and Canadian consumers are getting what they paid for. Now, if it was up to the opposition, Mr. Speaker, the price of gasoline would be higher because of their implementing a carbon tax. For that I say shame.
Exactly.
The Honourable Member for Quebec City. Mr. Speaker, the Act is not working at all. Quebecers are sick and tired of waiting. It's been 5 years since the Conservatives passed their Fairness at the Pumps Act. The Act provides for mandatory inspections and stiff fines for offenders. But Industry Canada inspectors haven't fined anyone since the Act was passed. That looks like a Conservative record there. 0 fines. Can the Minister explain why? Was this act just another act? The Honourable Minister of State. Mr. Speaker, Canadians expect to get the gas they pay for. That's why our government took action and passed the Fairness at the Pumps Act, which calls for mandatory inspections and fines. Clearly, our legislation is working to protect Canadian consumers and to make sure they get what they paid for.
English the last time, I'm going to say it again. Were it up to the opposition, we would be paying a higher price at the gasoline pumps because of their carbon tax. I say shame.
Here, here.
The Honourable Member for Bourassa. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's family will get the same check for childcare as a single parent, and that is $120 for 2 teenagers. Under the Liberal plan, the same single parent would get $900 a month tax-free, and the Prime Minister's family would get nothing, and that's fair and equitable. How do the Conservatives justify the fact that the Prime Minister would get the same check as a single-parent family who's struggling to make ends meet? The Honourable Minister of Employment. Mr. Speaker, our tax cuts for families and increases to the universal child care benefit are things that benefit all families, 100% of families, including those in need. The Liberal leader said that helping every family is not fair. Mr. Speaker, he's wrong. Our policy is to help 100% of families by putting money straight into their pockets. The Liberals would take that away and increase taxes.
Mr. Speaker, because this government refuses to make its child care benefit progressive based on need and tax-free, the results for families are perverse. Families of different types, but exactly the same number of kids and incomes, end up with very different after-tax benefits. One-earner couples get the most, two-earner couples get less, but single parents get the least of all. If the government's credo is identical treatment for everyone alike, why does this government discriminate against certain types of families? How is that fair?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
The Liberal leader admits that he would scrap income splitting. He admits that he would scrap the universal child care benefit. He admits that he would gut the tax-free savings accounts. But even after he does all of those things, he is still billions of dollars short. Just the other day, he admitted what he really thinks. Quote, Mr. Speaker, benefiting every single family isn't what is fair. And I quote, Mr. Speaker, he's absolutely wrong. We believe in benefiting 100% of families.
The Honourable Member for Wascana.
Mr. Speaker, if it's fair that child care benefits must be paid in exactly the same amount per child at all income levels, why do the Conservatives discriminate so radically against lower-income families? And it's not just the uneven taxation of child care benefits. On top of that, their $2 billion tax break for income splitting means a couple earning $250,000 can get $2,000, but a single mom or dad at the poverty line will get nothing at all. How is that fair? How is that equal?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, it's absolutely false. The universal child care benefit would help a single parent at the poverty line. It goes to every single family, $2,000 per child under the age of 6. That's why it's called universal. But the Liberal leader would take away the universal child care benefit. He'd take away income splitting. He'd gut the tax-free savings accounts. Maybe that's why he said, and I quote, Mr. Speaker, benefiting every single family isn't what is fair. He's absolutely wrong.
The Honourable Member for Fred Pelland. Mr. Speaker, in a memo to the Minister, the CSIS sounded the alarm concerning the lack of resources allocated for addressing cyber attacks in the country. The number of attacks are increasing daily, and more personal data is between the hands of cyber hackers and foreign governments. The government's cuts have resulted in inadequate services. What are they waiting for to fix this problem and to ensure that Canadians are protected from cyber attacks? The Honourable Minister of Public Safety. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for her question, and I would like to confirm that in the budget, in 326 and 327, for additional resources, there are additional resources allocated to cyber attacks against our governments and companies. So a good way of helping companies that are trying to deal with cyber attacks would be to support the Conservative budget, Mr. Speaker, and that's over and above the strategy we put in place. We put in place additional resources, and we did not receive the support from either the NDP or the Liberals, but we're still going to take measures. We're going to continue to take measures to protect the government and companies from cyber attacks.
Well, regardless of the props this minister uses, Mr. Speaker, CSIS was clear. The one-time investments that this minister made has not been nearly enough to increase the operational capacity at the agency. Mr. Speaker, government needs to be able to ensure the private information of Canadian businesses and families. This government has not done nearly enough. Its investment in cybersecurity is nowhere near that of our allies, and certainly nowhere near adequate for Canada. So when will the Minister for Public Safety stop being a paper minister in the digital era?
Minister, the member can look at the budget on the website, but let me just quote, securing government systems, partnering to secure vital cyber system outside the federal government, helping Canadians to be secure online, Mr. Speaker. That's in the budget. The member can stand up, support the budget. Why, Mr. Speaker? Because we are investing to make sure that industries, Canadian and the government are protected against cyber attack, Mr. Speaker. We have a strategy. Why is the member of the NDP not supporting these measures?
The honourable member from Timmins, James Bay.
Here we go again, Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of the Canada Revenue Agency continues to drop the ball when it comes to protecting the personal financial information of Canadians. Now, check this one out. CRA found that 22% of her employees were duped by a fake phishing email scam. That's like giving an all-access pass to cyber criminals. We're talking about the most important information that Canadians turn over to government. Now, this minister and her tired, worn-out government are running out of time. She's got 3 months left in her job. Isn't she going to establish some kind of protocols to protect the private rights of Canadians?
Minister of National Revenue.
The CRA must always be improving on its security processes and how it deals with the personal information of all Canadians. Our government expects nothing less. This was a learning exercise conducted by the CRA to improve employee awareness about a particular cyber threat. The results are now being used by the CRA to improve its security awareness and training for all employees. At no time was taxpayer information at risk, nor was there any capacity whatsoever for taxpayer information to be compromised.
The Honourable Member for Gaville-du-Nord. This is quite ridiculous, Mr. Speaker. The personal data stocked with the CRA are extremely sensitive. We're talking about social insurance numbers and financial data. So it seems to me that we're entitled to expect higher security standards. But when it was checked whether employees were sheltered from phishing attempts, over 3,500 of them took the hook. So we shouldn't be celebrating, Mr. Speaker. Can the minister guarantee once and for all that our data will be protected? The Honourable Minister.
I mentioned this was a learning exercise that the CRA conducted to improve employee awareness and our processes to respond to a particular cyber threat. The results of this exercise will be used to improve security awareness and training at CRA. Again, at no time was taxpayer information at risk, nor was there any capacity for taxpayer information to be compromised. They've asked what we're doing about cyber threats. That's what we're doing, exactly that.
Honourable member for Oakville.
Mr. Speaker, unlike the leader of the Liberal Party, who wants to divide Canadians, we want to ensure that all Canadian families benefit from our measures that keep taxes low so they can spend on their priorities. Can the Minister of Employment please update this House on how our measures are impacting families across Canada?
The Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, the family tax cut and benefits goes to 100% of families with kids. the Liberal leader said this week, I think he accidentally told the truth. He said, Mr. Speaker, benefiting every single family isn't what is fair. That's why he plans to take away income splitting. He plans to take away the universal child care benefit. He plans to gut the tax-free savings account. These are just clawbacks and tax hikes, he admits. But even after all of that, he's still billions of dollars short in his plan, proving that his numbers just don't add up, and there would be more Liberal tax hikes to come. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we're cutting taxes for every single family.
Honourable Member for Laurier St. Marie.
Mr. Speaker, unsafe abortion is responsible for 13% of all maternal deaths worldwide. But Canada won't help women in developing countries access safe abortion services. Even though it is permitted in the majority of Canada's countries of focus for development assistance and in Canada itself. Why is the minister refusing to save the lives of women and girls in developing countries by refusing to offer the full range of reproductive health services?
The Honourable Prime Secretary, Minister of International Cooperation.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we will not export controversy. We will export our world-leading expertise. And our efforts are backed by the international community, and we continue to rally international consensus for our program in partnership with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We will not reopen this debate, and we will not export divisiveness. We will continue the leadership of the Muskoka Initiative because what matters most are results, and that's what we are delivering.
The Honourable Member for Laurier St. Marie. Let's talk about results, Mr. Speaker. The results is that 13% of unsafe abortions represent 13% of maternal deaths throughout the world. So we want to save all women, including those women. So why isn't the government giving only pennies to family planning? And why is the government promoting its ideology to the detriment of women's health? Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I said, we are not going to export controversy. We are going to continue to export our world-leading expertise. And, Mr. Speaker, the results that we're getting under the Muskoka Initiative are nothing short of miraculous. We are saving the lives of hundreds of thousands of women and millions of children every year. But let me read what Melinda Gates said about this. We have made such great progress for women on prenatal care, on improving the contraceptives that they want, and on encouraging proper care and nutrition for newborns, and we need to keep moving forward. The only way to do that is to be clear, focused, and committed.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. The minister talked yesterday about amending the National Defence Act in order to repair the damage done by the Conservatives' inaction with regard to sexual misconduct in the armed forces. But the rot goes much deeper, Mr. Speaker. Military justice doesn't work when it comes to dealing with sexual harassment and assault cases. Will the minister pledge to completely overhaul the military justice system? Is he prepared to eliminate this culture of downplaying sexual misconduct? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, as the minister said yesterday at committee, we are looking at implementing changes to the military justice system, so it comes into line with the Victim Bill of Rights that we passed in this House of Commons not that long ago. Mr. Speaker, I just want to say that on the issue of sexual assault within the Canadian Armed Forces, we find that a deplorable act. We condemn it in the strongest terms, and we're supporting the Chief of Defence Staff and Major General Christine Whitecross, who's stood up the strategic response team to move forward on implementing all 10 recommendations of Justice Deschamps.
The Honourable Member for St. John's East.
Speaker, the minister refuses to recognise the clear evidence of a need for fundamental change in how the military justice system deals with sexual assault. He's also refused to provide a clear legal framework for our troops in Iraq, despite us having been there for 9 months. The minister has failed to secure a status of forces agreement. The United States has one. In fact, they wouldn't stay in Afghanistan without one. Such an agreement could have been an important matter in the wake of Sergeant Waron's tragic death. Why doesn't Canada have this basic and vital agreement in place now?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Minister of National Defence.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to remind the member, and indeed all opposition members, that we're in Iraq at the invitation of the government of Iraq. Our government has worked directly with the government of Iraq to secure all the appropriate protections for members of the Canadian Armed Forces that are participating in the coalition operations to fight ISIS, the jihadist terrorist organization. Now, the status of forces agreements are binding, they're treaty level, they're international commitments between countries, and they take a long time to negotiate. And that is exactly what the member is trying to advocate here, is about opposing the mission. They want to delay it, and we want to get over there and help fight this terrorist organization and protect Canada and Canadians.
The honourable member for Malpeque. Mr. Speaker, shocking news today from the Office of the Information Commissioner of Canada. Someone within the government broke the law. The RCMP destroyed records knowing those records were subject to the right of access guaranteed under the Access to Information Act. The destruction of government documents is a violation of Canadian law. Who gave the order? Or is the Minister of Public Safety himself a co-conspirator in this illegal activity in an agency under his authority? What has happened here? Why was the law broken?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Well, Mr. Speaker, not only the RCMP is fully complying with the law, but is also respecting the will of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our government won't apologize to have ended the long and ineffective, wasteful long gun registry, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our government has taken a clear position. This Parliament has decided that we would move forward, and we expect that all agencies will move forward. That's why we needed to close the loophole. We are doing it, and we're proud to make sure that the will of the Parliament in this country is respected. Thank you.
Member for Malpeque.
Mr. Speaker, the will of Parliament has nothing to do with the facts are these. The Conservatives either destroyed or had destroyed government records in violation of Canadian law. Now they are trying to protect themselves by bearing changes in the budget bill to cover up this illegal act. Who is this cover-up being implemented to protect? Is it the RCMP, a minister, or both? How far up the Prime Minister's chain of command does this illegal cover-up for illegal activities go? How far up that chain of command?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for his very animated question, but the facts are clear, Mr. Speaker. The Government of Canada and Parliament put an end to the wasteful and ineffective long gun registry. Therefore, we expect agencies to enforce that decision. That is why we are correcting a loophole that existed in the legislation. And when Mr. Speaker, when are Liberals going to stop attacking hunters and fishers and citizens who are law-abiding? When are they going to start attacking criminals?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's a crisis in my community of Surrey. 30 shootings in the past 2 months. The Conservatives brag about being tough on crime, but we're not seeing that on the streets of Surrey, Mr. Speaker. The city and the province have asked for urgent addition of 100 RCMP officers, but we're still waiting for this government to approve those officers. Why are the Conservatives stalling, and why are they failing to protect communities like mine?
Bravo.
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, this government is waiting for the support of the opposition and the NDP to take strong action to keep our community safe, Mr. Speaker. I walk in the street of Surrey, Mr. Speaker. I've seen the benefit of having a strong strategy, Mr. Speaker, with tougher sentences for drive-by shooting, Mr. Speaker. The NDP oppose those measures. They oppose the funding, Mr. Speaker. We put in the RCMP and in the prevention, Mr. Speaker. We are working with the British government. We are serious. I'm very proud of the effort my colleagues are doing. We are standing by the people of Surrey, and we will make sure that their community is safer and a great country we have in Canada.
Honourable member for Newton North Delta.
The people in our community don't want to hear more excuses from this majority Conservative government. They want action, safer streets now, more youth gang prevention.
Order. It didn't sound to me that the member had finished the questions, so I'll ask members to hold off on their applause until the member for Newton North Delta has done so.
So a government that has a majority complaining that they haven't taken action. They want action. That's what our members want, our constituents. Safer streets, more youth gang prevention programs. And they want this government to immediately approve the 100 new RCMP officers that the city and province have requested. 30 shootings in 2 months. Enough is enough. The Conservatives cannot ignore this crisis any longer. Will the minister make a clear commitment today for 100 new RCMP officers and tell us exactly when they will arrive?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, our government is working with the City of Surrey, with the British Columbia government, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, when will the NDP really stop doing lip service for the people of Surrey and begin supporting our measure, Mr. Speaker? We have passed tough new laws to clean up our streets and put gang members behind bars, Mr. Speaker, where they belong. We have passed over 30 new tough on-crime measures, Mr. Speaker. Never could we count on the support of the NDP, Mr. Speaker, but on this Conservative government, Mr. Speaker, that I'm so proud to be part of because we are making our streets safer and we are standing by the...
The Honourable Member for Saskatoon-Humboldt.
Mr. Speaker, as I've been travelling throughout my riding, I've been speaking to hardworking parents about opportunities that this Conservative government gives to them to save more money for their families, such as the universal childcare benefit, the family tax cut, and the home accessibility tax credit. I'm proud to say this government's plan benefits 100% of families with children. Can the minister responsible please inform this House what he's hearing about from everyday Canadians say about these new measures to support them?
The Honourable Minister of State for Social Development.
Well, Mr. Speaker, earlier this week we learned that the Liberals don't believe that helping every single family is fair. We also heard yesterday that the NDP think that only families that use licensed daycares are real families. Mr. Speaker, these are not just gaffes by the opposition, although we know there seems to be a lot of gaffes going on. This is actually what they believe. They believe that only a select few families deserve support in Canada. Well, Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we delivered the universal childcare benefit to all families. We're committed to enhancing it and increasing it. Mr. Speaker, we will always give money back to Canadian families because it's their money, all of them.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver-Causeway.
The Defence Minister denied it. The orders restricting Major General Whitecross still stand. Until these orders are changed, and despite the Minister's false claims, General Whitecross simply cannot act on all 10 recommendations of the Deschamps report, including the creation of an independent Centre for Accountability for Sexual Abuse and Harassment. Our armed force members deserve action and not confusion. So why won't the minister assume his responsibilities and act to have these orders rescinded now?
The Honourable Permanent Secretary of the Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister, the Minister, and the Chief of Defence Staff all proved that that statement was absolutely false. Actually, I'll quote Major General Christine Whitecross, and she said, "My marching orders are very clear. My mandate is to get a team together and to get an action plan to address all 10 recommendations." She's doing just that. She's going to continue to make sure that we are there to support victims of sexual assault, as well as change the culture within the Canadian Armed Forces so we can address this issue head on.
The Honourable Member for Scutes-Millefield. Mr. Speaker, the forestry industry is an important one in my region. It employs thousands of workers and contributes to the regional development. We need support for it to modernize its protection and compete with global rivals. The minister created a working group, which is not much. Can the minister tell us if this is an electioneering promise?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the opportunity to talk about our balanced budget that benefits every single Canadian family from coast to coast to coast. Our budget makes investments in the forest sector that will create jobs and grow the economy. Here's what the Council of Quebec Forest Industry has to say. By this budgetary measure, the Canadian government is recognizing the forest industry's major contribution to the country's economy. With over 200,000 jobs, including some 60,000 in Quebec, the industry contributes to Canada's GDP to the tune of nearly $21 billion.
Honourable member for Huron-Bruce.
Our government understands that small business is the backbone of the Canadian economy. Yes. While the opposition wants to raise taxes, small businesses in my riding of Huron-Bruce know that only this government supports them. Can the Minister of Finance please tell the House why the members of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business applauded the government's Economic Action Plan 2015 and gave it an A? Thank you.
And the Honourable Minister of Finance.
Third time lucky, they may actually vote for the budget, but if they want me to answer more questions, Mr. Speaker, they should pose them. I thank the member for Huron-Bruce for his very important question. Our government is proud that we're going to be bringing down small business taxes to 9%. This means cutting federal taxes to almost 1/2. It'll be the biggest decrease in 25 years. But the Liberal leader said he would kill jobs by reversing these cuts. Then his finance critic later contradicted him. So did he go off script again, or is he scrambling to fill a massive hole in his discredited plan, a hole that is getting bigger with every air...
The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister has made it clear that the climate targets for the upcoming climate meetings in Paris will be tabled before the G7. With the G7 scheduled for June 7th and 8th in Germany, could the Minister of Environment update us on when we might expect to see the intended nationally determined contributions from the Government of Canada?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Mr. Speaker, we will submit Canada's greenhouse gas emission targets this month. Greenhouse gas emission targets will reflect actions by all levels of government, so we are seeking additional information from the jurisdictions, the provinces and the territories about how they intend to meet their targets. Our Conservative government is the first government in Canadian history that has reduced greenhouse gas emissions, and will continue to take actions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions without introducing a job-killing carbon tax. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Verchères-les-Patriotes. Mr. Speaker, I was surprised to learn yesterday that the Canada Revenue Agency had refused to cooperate with an inquiry led by the Montreal Police Force on wine smuggling, whereas it itself is a victim of this fraudulent traffic. Wine sold illegally deprives government coffers of taxes normally collected on this product. We're talking about $14 million that the governments in Quebec and Canada lose out on. All taxpayers in Canada are bilked. How can the government justify such a lack of cooperation and such arrogance on the part of the CRA, which was even prepared to go as far as the Supreme Court to avoid cooperating? Honourable Minister.
Have been laid. I have directed the CRA to immediately share all the information in question with provincial prosecutors. Our government will continue to assist all policing bodies in their ongoing work to keep Canadians safe and communities safe. Mr. Speaker, I emphasize that the opposition has opposed all of our measures to put criminals behind bars and keep our communities safe. Thank you.
That concludes question period for today. It is my duty to inform the House that a vacancy has occurred in the representation. Mr. Brown, member for the electoral district of Barrie, by resignation effective today, Thursday, May 14, 2015. Conformément à la...
Pursuant to subsection 25(1)(b) of the Parliament of Canada Act, I have addressed my warrant to the Chief Electoral Officer for the issue of a writ for the election of a member to fill this vacancy.
And it being Thursday, I know the Honourable Member for Burnaby New Westminster would like to pose the Thursday question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think we have a Thursday answer, and that is that the government is acknowledging the weakness of its own financial plan when the finance minister refuses to answer 12 questions asked by the opposition on finance and will only answer questions that are directed from the Conservative backbench, so softball questions. Mr. Speaker, that's showing huge disrespect for Parliament.
But I have good news, Mr. Speaker. The good news is that last week, a stable majority, new Democrat government was elected in the province of Alberta, Mr. Speaker. The very good news was that a new stable government, an NDP government, was elected in the province of Alberta, and we'll see that the trend is going to continue. The NDP is leading in British Columbia, in Ontario, and nationally, Mr. Speaker. So, 2/3 of Canadians do want change. And that change is going to happen through the NDP.
Until we elect a new Parliament, we will be sitting until June 23rd, as you know, Mr. Speaker, and we'll be working every single day until June 23rd. That's what New Democrats do. So I'd like to ask my colleague, the government House Leader, what the government will put on the agenda